When I first heard that Brazil was going to be hosting a 2024 NFL regular season game and that a year later Spain would follow suit, well, I was pretty puzzled to say the least. That's because Australia is far more deserving. They have a passionate base of NFL fans who are far more knowledgeable than people give them credit for. And we're not just talking about the punters. I don't really know enough about the NFL in Brazil to make a judgment either way on if that country deserves to have an NFL regular season game. But Spain? Really? The average Madridista doesn't know the first thing about American football, and those who probably are aware of its existence aren't going to think too highly of it. Madrid is a place that thinks it's really cool, and most folks are above the sport of American football. That, by the way, is meant as no slight to the city. I love Madrid. You know, if I could, I would live there. And every day I would eat jamón and bocadilla de calamares. I'd go to the Prado all the time. I'd support Rayo Vallecano and their delightfully wonderful three-sided stadium. Oh, I am just daydreaming here. Sorry about that. I kind of lost myself in my train of thought. What were we talking about then? Australia and the NFL. As great as Madrid and Spain are, that is not NFL territory in any way, shape, or form. If you want to put the game in Catalonia, okay, I understand it. They have a history of the NFL with the Barcelona Dragons, and they do kind of enjoy more contact sports than the rest of the country, but Madrid, absolutely not. Quite frankly, though, nowhere in Spain should be above Australia when it comes to getting an NFL regular season game. Not only is it a great fit, a public that loves sports and knows what American football is, but it's also a location that already has facilities ready to go. You're not cramming an NFL game into a soccer stadium. You're playing in a stadium that can really fit what the NFL has to offer based on its history with rugby league and rugby union. The country could have hosted an NFL game yesterday if required, although yesterday would actually be today in Australia. Look, the international dateline is not my forte, but you get the picture. The land down under is full of places that could accommodate a National Football League clash. For starters, you obviously have the 80,000 plus seat Accor Stadium. It has the ideal shape you would want in an NFL stadium. You can't get any more perfect than that. Of course, the NFL could try to get more ambitious and hold their first regular season game at Melbourne Cricket Ground, which seats 100,000 plus people, although the shape of that's a bit more awkward. You'll see rugby league games played there from time to time, but I think the NFL would be better by going to Sydney first, and then if they wanted to pursue Melbourne, they could in the future. To that extent, Accor Stadium's actually already hosted American football games, although those were ones of the college variety, and it wasn't known as Accor Stadium, it was called Allianz Stadium back then. In 2016, Cal played Hawaii, and then the year following, Stanford played Rice, both games happening in Sydney. The games were very much a success, even though if the announced attendance and how many people were actually in the stands don't necessarily line up. By and large, the players, those who did go, they all spoke highly of what happened during these college football games in Australia. It's also crucial to remember that the NFL is far bigger in the country than collegiate football. I don't think a lot of folks watch a ton of college football. Some games are broadcast down there, but the NFL is the NFL. It is widely known and watched. Of course, the Aussies do follow their punters, which are now just everywhere in college football, but by and large, the preference is for the NFL. When Roger Goodell announced that Brazil and Spain would be hosting NFL regular season games, the term global footprint was used quite a few times. The league wanted to expand its global footprint. Brazil and an entry into South America certainly makes sense in that regard, and you can't hold that against the league. But again, Spain, going back to Europe, how is that expanding the global footprint of the NFL? There have been games played in England, there have been games played in Germany, and I'm guessing NFL fans in Spain who wanted to see a live game would have traveled to either one of those places and watched it. Oceania, though, now that is a different story. That is a global footprint, and one that does also sort of align well with what the NFL wants. It's firstly an English speaking territory, which is big as far as broadcasting and just getting the word out about the sport. Additionally, Australia, New Zealand, the entire region, they understand similar games, and in many cases, you already sort of have a loyal fan base that could be expanded. This, of course, assumes the NFL doesn't fumble things down under like Burger King did back in the day. Hungry Jack's, kids, look it up. Obviously, the big thing standing in the way between Australia and an NFL regular season game is logistics. It is very far away, and the time zones certainly don't help matters. But if you sit down and you think about it and you work out all of the logistics, there's a way to make it work without all that much inconvenience. First, there is the flight. So a flight between Philadelphia and Rio de Janeiro is roughly about 10 hours or so non-stop. Now, getting from the west coast of the United States from SFO or LAX to Sydney, that's about 15 hours. It's long, no doubt about that, but let's also not pretend like NFL teams are going to be flying coach over there. I mean, they're going to have very comfortable accommodations, and again, it's a long flight, but doing so in business class or first class surroundings isn't that difficult. The start time of the game also not a big deal at all. In fact, you could start the game at noon Sydney time, which would be prime time, 8 p.m. on the East Coast. In other words, the start time is better than most of those London matchups, which are starting early in the morning in the United States. Now, some people may be confused about watching the game at night when it's actually being played in the day in Sydney, but again, not a big deal. Given the time zone differences, travel required, and obviously the runway, the adjustment period, teams would need to travel there and return to the United States. The question then becomes, when would you play this NFL regular season game in Australia? To me, it's actually a very simple and easy answer here. You just play it sometime during Labor Day weekend. When? I don't think it matters much. You can play it either Monday morning Sydney time, you can play it Sunday morning Sydney time, you can play it Saturday morning Sydney time. There's any number of combinations you could get to work there, so it would line up with a primetime US broadcast. Before you start with your tradition argument, let's make one thing perfectly clear. The NFL is just making up traditions as they go along. We're now getting Black Friday games, we're getting Christmas triple headers. They don't really care when or what they're going to do to play games as long as it makes money. So I am not hearing your, well, the NFL season starts after Labor Day argument, because the NFL doesn't care about that tradition. It's just what they do. There's no reason to it. Playing it during that Labor Day weekend, though, actually takes advantage in the natural break that comes with the NFL calendar, that being sort of the baked-in bye week after the last preseason game. You could have the two teams scheduled to face off in Australia play their last preseason games on that Thursday. That gives them time to adjust their rosters accordingly, take care of all of that house cleaning before heading out to Australia on the following Monday, giving them about a week or so time to prepare. If that doesn't happen to be enough time, well, you can simply have the two teams going to play in Australia start their preseason fixtures even earlier. Have them play that weekend of the Hall of Fame game. Right now, there's just that one lone preseason game, the Hall of Fame game, that's in super early August, and then there's not another preseason game for about a week, 8-9 days later. So just bump up those preseason games, and then those teams will still play 3 preseason games, and they'll just end a week earlier, allowing them to leave sooner for Australia should they wish to do so. The reason, though, you have to play on Labor Day as opposed to waiting until the Thursday or even the Saturday or Sunday of the regular season is that basically this sort of bakes in an extra bye for those sides, because they would come back after the game and have about 12 or so days to reacclimate to the United States. That seemingly is more than enough time for players to go, adjust, play, come back, adjust, and then play again. Then again, I don't even know if that much time is actually required. Remember, back in the day, all teams that played in London were required to have a bye the following week, and the NFL has since done away with that scheduling quirk. There is admittedly a pretty big difference between flying from the East Coast to London and anywhere in America going to Australia. But again, 7 to 12 days on either side of that game to just make sure you're back in tune with everything. It seems like it should be more than enough time to make it happen. Beyond that is the actual experience. What would the NFL be gaining from this? If you listen to what the college team said about playing in Australia, they all said the same thing, that it was an amazing experience. They really couldn't speak highly enough about the host, about just everything that came with playing down under. We know for a fact, without question, Australia would pull out all of the stops and roll out the reddest of red carpet for the National Football League, because the country does it for any sort of sporting event they get. UFC, WWE, the college football. We see when someone goes down to Australia, when a big time sport plays there, it is a huge thing. They really do it right. They make sure it feels like a special occasion. That means the NFL will be getting a one-of-a-kind showcase, something that will not only please existing fans, but help the league attract and maintain new ones. If that isn't the ultimate goal of the NFL's international series, then I don't know what is. So Roger Goodell and NFL owners, do the right thing. Do the fiscally responsible thing. Do the thing that makes sense and give Australia the NFL regular season game it deserves. Finally, for you Americans who are probably a bit disgruntled about the idea of the NFL hosting another regular season game outside the country, trust me when I say Australia would do it right. And you wouldn't want to miss watching it, because all of the fans are going to be downing schooners and doing shoeies. It's just going to be entertainment galore. Thank you for watching this video. If you would like to learn more about the time the NFL held its championship game in the middle of a racetrack, well, the video in the upper right-hand corner of your screen is the place to go. Until next time, I'm Cheyenne Hollis. This is The Touchback, and as always, hashtag take it out to the 25.